It's Daniel Schlepfer from Risk Application, and I'm gonna show you how to process Mjolnir full spectrum data with the new DROACOR software. First of all, have a look at the small data set. That's the demo data set which is provided with the data. That's this small sample, like that one, which has 487 bands and represents a small subset of vegetation somewhere. So in the input directory, you should have this dataset with the env header. You should have the scan angle file if it's auto-rectified imagery, and the patch status file in any case. The status file is used for all metadata information for this dataset. If it was more than one dataset, this group of files has to be provided for each of them in the same directory, and make sure that no other data is disturbing the processing later, because all the processing is done based on directory reading. So the first step when processing is importing the data. We're going to import Mjolnir data. This import filter applies to all kind of Mjolnir and high-specs data for processing. We first select the input directory, which can be selected by just selecting one file in there, and the file filter may need some adaptation if the file does not end on VS620 in your case. You don't need a calibration file. You can select and cancel to go to a default calibration information. This is the scaling factor of the calibrated data. The reference file is usually just the one which has been selected. If it's more than one, it should be one with good statistics, because that one is used to do a spectral recalibration. The ground elevation can be taken from metadata for patch status files or from global DM, so that should work that way. We're going to import the data now, and you see a spectral shift is calculated for both detectors, and the atmospheric lookup table is resampled dynamically and stored together with the data. So the output is stored in the same direction in this case. That's fine. If you check out the parameters, so it's the height above ground is 56 meters. That's the drone data with a ground altitude of 70 meters, and the solar zenith at 49 is reasonable. So I think the data import is fine now. We can go to the processing. DROACOR processor, and we have the same data set still as an input, and we have a reference image which is also the same. The output remains, and the output extension is reflectance RFL. That's a default extension for DROACOR outputs. I don't do cloud shadow removal. That's kind of an experimental function, and but I do some polishing. I chose medium polishing in this case, and for the absorption bands, I'm going to remove or interpolate the fully absorbing 1400, 1800 bands, and I'm going to remove those after interpolation and polishing. I keep the unpolished data just to show the difference, and so that's how I can run the whole thing. And it's quite fast this time because it's a very small subset. Of course, it will take much more time if you got a full data set. So then you can easily get 5 to 10 minutes for the whole processing. So processing has been done successfully. Let's have a look at the output. I'm gonna show you the reflectance output before polishing. That's this one. And you see some spectral artifacts. Interpolation has already been done here, but you have some little variation still in the data which may need to be polished. And if I'm looking at the polished data on the side, so I'm going to show you the polished data output. That's the pH output in this case. And I'm going to look at the same spectrum. and I'm gonna show the spectrum here. So this is the polished data set, which is apparently quite nice. Maybe some problems at 2000 nanometer. This would need to be changed by extending the interpolation range, but that's not a major issue in this case. So I can move around a little bit, and that's how this data set looks like. We may have some problems in the 940, also one could consider polishing or interpolating 940 as well. This would be an option to improve or to get rid of this kind of absorption, which, by the way, also could be an absorption of real water in the vegetation. So that's how it looks like, and that's how far we can get with this sample data set. More on DROACOR on the website on www.droacor.com or on our RISI website, risiapps.com.